know, Kiyaya. I always hate to see great books end. And this is no exception. Today, we're going to be sharing the conclusion to Robert Kimmel Smith's The War with Grandpa. I can't wait to find out how the war for Peter's room with Grandpa Jack ends. Can you, Kiyaya? Well, friends, we don't need to wait anymore. It's time to sit back, relax, and get cozy. It's story time with Kiyaya and Daniel.
David Axterby of Long Island Telecom. We are your cellular superstore. We have the best in no-contract cellular on every carrier in the United States. We also do portable MiFi units, home phone service. We can beat your cable company at their own game by providing you very inexpensive TV, and we are a Sirius XM dealer as well. We can create a website for you, give you a special corporate email, and we do credit card processing. 631-833-9679.
Stories are such an important part of our lives. Join my friend Kiyaya and I for Get Cozy, because it's story time with Kiyaya and Daniel, where we share some of the greatest picture books and chapters from children's and young adult literature to inspire you to keep embedding literacy into your days. Chapter 34, War's End. I couldn't believe I had slept peacefully through the rest of the night, but there was the time on my clock radio, 8:30 in the morning. I lay back in my bed and tried to listen to the house. There were stirrings from someplace downstairs. Mom was probably up by now. Saturday was her supermarket day. She usually took Dad along to help her and Jenny and me if we wanted to go. She was in the kitchen now. I heard the sound of the pot cabinet under the stove slamming shut. She was probably beginning to prepare our Saturday morning breakfast of French toast or pancakes. I heard the water running in my parents' bathroom on the second floor. That meant Dad was up and washing. Then I heard what I'd been listening for. Uneven footsteps sounded on the stairs as Grandpa came limping up to see me. I waited. There was a knock on the door. "Come on in, Grandpa," I called out. The door opened and Grandpa was there. He had one hand covering his mouth, but his eyes looked awfully angry. He came into the room sideways, his face turned toward the window and away from me. "Ma fief are missing," he said. I stared at him. "What?" "Ma fief," he said. "You are ma fief, aren't you?" I got up out of bed. As I did that, Grandpa turned his back on me. "Don't look at me," he said. It sounded like he was talking Pig Latin or some kind of weird language. "I don't understand you," I said. "Ma fief," shouted Grandpa. "If me act ma fief, ooh little mobber." Suddenly the dawn came up on my brain. That's the way Grandpa spoke, without his teeth. Amazing and weird. "You're asking me to give your teeth back to you, right?" I said. Grandpa nodded his head, and his hand was still covering his mouth. "Well," I said, "you have to do something first." "I'm on feet, my feet. I need my feet." I translated that in my head. "You need your teeth, right? Everybody needs teeth. But we're fighting a war here, remember?" "Oh, feeder," he said, "don't be that way, please." "Nope," I said, "war is war. Surrender right now, or I'll never give your teeth back." "I mean it." Grandpa turned his face toward me. and there was such a sad look in his eyes. It almost made me want to cry. Without his teeth, his mouth looked all pushed in and wrinkled. He looked so old and helpless. Just seeing him standing there like that, a person I loved as much as anyone in the whole wide world, I felt as low as a worm's belly button. I can't explain what happened next. All I can do is tell you what I did. I ran down the hall to the closet where I'd hidden his teeth. Then I came back in a minute and handed them over, still wrapped so neat in those soft paper tissues. Grandpa took them and went into the bathroom, closing the door behind him. I heard the water running in the sink. Then he came out with his teeth back in his mouth, looking like my grandpa again. We stared at each other, not saying anything. I turned away from him and looked out the window. Across the street, Mr. Taub was mowing the lawn. "The war is over," I said. "I hope you'll forgive me for what I did. And if it makes you feel any better, I'm so ashamed of myself." I could curl up in a ball and just disappear. "Oh, Peter," Grandpa said, sighing. "Maybe this is how wars get started and just go on and on," I said. "Your enemy does something bad to you, so you do something worse to him. Then he gets you back, and you get him back, and the whole thing gets bigger and bigger. And meaner, in the end, someone drops a bomb. Isn't that the way it happens?" "Something like that," Grandpa said. "Well," I said, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have taken your teeth." "It's my fault, too," Grandpa said. "Don't take it all on yourself, Petey." "I started it," I said. "And I let you," said Grandpa. "I'm the grown-up here. I should have known better. But you know what? I enjoyed it. It was kind of fun, and I think I needed something to get over my sadness." Grandpa came up behind me, and I looked out the window. I felt his big hands on my shoulders, and his arms grabbed me and hugged me. "All of us got off on the wrong foot," he said. "Your parents took your room away from you and shut you up, Pete. That was the mistake that was first made. Just because you shut someone up, it doesn't mean his hurt has gone away. There should have been a family conference or something like that, including me, and we could have figured out where I was to stay. That causes a lot of wars too, Pete. Not talking." "I'll get used to living up here," I said. "I'm real sorry I took your room away," Grandpa said. "But I'm not sorry you came to live with us," I said back. Grandpa hugged me a little tight at that and kissed the top of my head. "You're a real sweet kid," he said, "but a hard guy to fight a war against." "I still lost," I said. "Yes," said Grandpa, "but only by the skin of my teeth." Chapter 35. Bottoms Up. After breakfast that day, Mom, Dad, and Jenny went off to the supermarket. I chose to stay home with Grandpa. He was sitting in the kitchen having his third cup of coffee. He looked like he was thinking hard. "You know," he said, "there's got to be another way for me to live here without taking your room away. Let's think on it, Petey." "There's only so many rooms," I said. "Right. I mean, you couldn't exactly live in the kitchen or in the dining room." "Funking in the living room is out," Grandpa said with a grin. "Right, and the top floor is out because of your leg. 2 flights up is too much." "And the porch would be cold in the winter," Grandpa said. "That's silly," I said. "Of course," he said. "Besides, the paper boy and the milkman would keep waking me up every morning." "Grandpa, be serious," I laughed. He ran a hand from the top of his face to the bottom and wiped off his smile. "Okay, serious. What's left in this old house?" "The basement," I said, "but Dad's office is down there." "Say, that's right," Grandpa said. "I'd kind of forgotten about that. He fixed the basement up himself, didn't he?" after Grandma and me moved to Florida. It's kind of dingy, I said. Let's take a look. I opened the door to the basement, which was in the hall right off the kitchen, and Grandpa followed me down the stairs. I put on the lights. It's dark down here, I told Grandpa, because only one of the 3 ceiling lights works. Grandpa looked around the big room, peeking into the tiny bathroom. Not too promising, is it? He said. Dad's not a good fixer-upper, I said. That's why he's an accountant, Grandpa said. He took the stepladder Dad kept against the wall and set it up, then climbed up and poked away a ceiling panel to look through the hole. These light fixtures weren't wired too good, he said, but the cable is fine. He climbed carefully down the ladder. Do me a favor, Pete, he said. Run out to the garage and get me my big tape measure from out of my toolbox, would you please? I see I got scrap paper and pencil right there under Dad's desk. When I brought the tape measure back to him, Grandpa was talking to himself. Heating ducts and plumbing are okay, and electricity can be pulled through. It's a start, anyway. Grandpa took the tape measure and began measuring the floor. I held the end down for him while he did the unrolling. All the time he was writing measurements on his scrap paper. Then he sat down at Dad's desk and made a sketch of the room. When he was finished, he turned the paper around so I could see it. I'm thinking about my own little apartment down here, Pete, he said. I think it could be real cozy. It's kind of dark, isn't it? I said. Well, I fixed those lights and put in a couple of lamps. Some of these floor tiles are loose, Grandpa. I put some carpet down. It'll warm up the place, too. The walls are yucky, I said. Paneling will help them make the place neat, too. And I can enlarge that little bathroom and put in a small stall shower. There's a gas line in the corner, you know. I figure I could put in a little stove and maybe hang a cabinet there. So sometimes I could cook things on my own or make a cup of coffee down here. Sounds like a lot of work, I said. And that door leads out to the driveway, so I'd even have my own private entrance. I don't know, Grandpa, I said. It's a lot of work. Hey, Petey, he grinned. I used to build whole houses, remember? Why, one little apartment ought to be a snap. You'll help me some, won't you? You bet. Then it'll take no time at all, and maybe a little privacy for me and a lot more privacy for the rest of you. That's not such a bad idea, is it? Now we all have to do is convince your dad. It is his house, after all. I had a very bad thought. What if he says no, Grandpa? I don't think he will, Pete. But what if he does? Will we have to go to war with my dad? Grandpa threw his head back and laughed. That would be fun, wouldn't it? But no, Petey. No more wars. From now on, this family will talk everything out in the open. Peacefully, I hope. Chapter 36. Building the Peace. It didn't take very long to convince Dad about turning his basement office into Grandpa's new apartment. On the other hand, it wasn't as easy as I thought either. I know that Dad and Grandpa and Mom talked about it a lot, mostly when I wasn't around. But I managed to listen in a few times from my secret spot under the stairs. Dad was worried about how much it was going to cost. Grandpa told him that he had money saved, and if he can't spend it on his daughter's house, making it a place to live for the rest of my life, where can I spend it? Dad seemed a lot more willing after that. But he was worried about losing his office. You'll have your office upstairs in the guest room, Grandpa explained. 2 flights up means nothing to you, Grandpa said, but only 1 flight down means a lot to me. Dad surrendered after that, and the work began. Grandpa got these men who used to work for him in the old days to help. They mostly worked in the evenings, moonlighting, Grandpa called it, though they kept the lights on all the time. And I helped a lot. Grandpa showed me how to bang in a nail, how to pull wire through a wall, and how to watch out for electricity when you're putting up the lights. What you don't want, he told me, is a shocking experience. It took a little more than 6 weeks to finish Grandpa's basement apartment, but when it was done, it looked beautiful. He had a nice brown rug on the floor, a stove to make coffee and things, a new easy chair to just sit and relax in. Mom and Dad bought Grandpa a color TV of his own so he could watch his programs downstairs when we wanted to watch something else in the living room. And Grandpa's new little bathroom was so neat. One day, he even let me use his brand new shower stall. It was great. But the best day was when Grandpa and his friends finished moving all his furniture into the basement apartment. Because when they got everything in place, they went up to the top floor and moved all my things back into my old room. I helped them put all my stuff back in all the right places. I wanted my room to be exactly the way it was. Not one thing different. I lined up the shoe boxes holding my baseball cards in the same spot they used to be. And I rehung my Hank Aaron poster right over the middle of my dresser. When everything was in place and Grandpa and his friends left, I lay down on my bed and thought for a while. I have to tell you, I had a smile on my face. I just couldn't take off. I was back where I belonged, in my room where I'd always lived. It was like I had put on my favorite pair of flannel pajamas that first cold night in the fall. My room was comfortable, and it fit me. I belonged to it, and it to me again. And then I started to think about some other things too. Now, you shouldn't always do what your friends tell you to do. They're not deciding. They're not living your life, you are. And you have to decide what's right and wrong. While I was living there, feeling the best I'd felt in a long time, I heard a loud banging noise on the outside of my door. I got up to look when Grandpa swung the door open. He had a hammer in his hand and one more nail to put in. "It's a little present I made for you," he said. He was hanging a wooden sign on my door that had letters kind of burned into the wood. "Pete's Place," the sign said. I grabbed Grandpa and gave him a hug. "It's terrific," I said. "Thanks." He gave me his best smile. "You didn't lose your room, Pete," he said, "and you've gained a Grandpa." Chapter 37. For my teacher. This last chapter is only for you, Mrs. Klein. I want to thank you for all the encouragement you gave me when I wanted to quit so many times, and for giving me so much extra time to finish, like the whole term. I think maybe when I grow up, I might be a writer. I got used to slipping upstairs into my dad's office to type a chapter every night after dinner. Some of the longer chapters took a week, and one of them took even longer. Mostly it was fun, but some of it was hard work. I felt so dumb sitting there when the words wouldn't come. But if you wait long enough and you think hard enough, and your little sister keeps out of your hair, then you can do it. I learned that starting is the hardest part, and it gets easier as you go along. But the ending is making me a little sad. I'm thinking, what will I do tomorrow night instead of coming up here to work on my story? Maybe I'll have to start thinking about another story. Anyway, this is the true and real story of Peter Stokes and the war with his grandpa. I hope you like it, and I sure hope you don't take too much off for bad spelling and grammar. What an incredible end to an incredible book. And now I know, Kiyaya, that I'm ready to see this new movie with Robert DeNiro and Uma Thurman, Cheech Marin, and so many other great actors. But there's a very important message here also. Family fights and squabbles is something we all know something about. But there's a great message at the end of Robert Kimmel Smith's book, The War with Grandpa. Talk it out. It's worth it. Don't let hurts and nonsense ruin relationships. I think there's a great lesson there for all of us, don't you, Kiyaya? Well, we're looking forward to starting another great book with you next week on Get Cozy. It's story time with Kiyaya and Daniel. But I know that Kiyaya and I are looking forward to hearing about what you thought about The War with Grandpa. Did it meet up to your expectations? Have you seen the movie as we've been reading the book? We'd love to hear from you. Kiyaya loves getting fan mail. Post a message to us on our social media at Stitching Wolf on Facebook and Instagram, or pop us an email, getcozy@stitchingwolfdesigns.com. Until we meet again, friends, remember, stay happy and healthy, and always remember, that's right, Kiyaya, reading is power.